Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 13. We are really close to the end, and it doesn't really feel like it. It really doesn't, because of just how chopped up these episodes feel. So this is Episode 13, Into the Breach, and it's literally just... This episode and last week could have literally been a double episode, and I don't know why they did this way, because the double episode would have worked perfectly with this type of chopping up of the story, because last week was incredible filler, and this week I think was a little better than last week's episode. Not by much though. Like it's another basic Bad Batch mission just to progress the story a little more, and that's all it really was. It wasn't really anything memorable in any way. It was just a progression of the overall story, which is fine, obviously, but it's not memorable. It's not like a memorable episode or anything like that. And yeah, let's just get into some of the stuff here. So Omega's now captured still, and now she has to figure a way out, because of course this is what she's going to do. She's going to try to find a way to escape. She meets up with the kids. She starts to get to know them a little bit. We have Rampart, who is now with the Bad Batch because they rescued him last episode. He is going to help them get to Tantiss because he has a certain way of how to get there, but he doesn't know the coordinates. So we meet up with the Bad Batch and them waiting for somebody, and the somebody that they're waiting for is Echo. So Echo actually went out and basically stole an Imperial ship so they can use it to get onto an Imperial base. So they're going to use this ship to get onto a base so they can complete their mission for this episode. So they're now on a stolen Imperial shuttle ship, and they're going to use that to go onto this big base above Coruscant. Rampart informs them that there are ships that go onto this base, and they are sent from this base to Tantiss, and that is the only way that they can get there. That they can get the coordinates from a ship on this base. That's how he was able to get to Tantiss before. He doesn't actually know the coordinates, but he was able to get direct coordinates for the ship itself when he went what other time before. So that's how they get to Tantiss. So they don't really know the coordinates that they are entering, but they are going to use it to get to Tantiss, and that's their little system there because of just how secret it is. That's what I've gotten from this. So they're going to use Rampart to kind of get aboard this Imperial station, and they're going to make him use this Admiral outfit or whatever it is and have them come onto the ship, pretend for as long as they can until they can get to a station and find out some coordinates from where Tantiss is. So we cut back to Omega. She's getting a visit from Emery, doing basic little checkups, doing the blood stuff again, and we see Omega steal a tool from Emery's thing, her tray. So Omega's going to use that in some sort of way a little later this episode, but she does steal a little tool. I'm surprised she didn't notice it was stolen. Maybe she did, and we just don't know that yet, but Emery just kind of walked off with her tray, and Omega has now a little tool, and she's going to get out of there somehow with it. Then Omega talks to all the kids in the area, and she goes over this big plan of, I'm going to go and actually, at a certain point a little later, I'm going to go off and for a quick moment be on my own, and I'm going to go into my room, whatever, and try to figure out the little tunnel areas that are where the droids go to on the walls and bring in their supplies and whatnot. So there's these little areas in the room that they're in that the droids can access. And she's going to try to use her little tool that she got to get into those little compartments. And she thinks it's going to lead to a bunch of little tunnels and vents and stuff. And that'll be their way out of the facility. So, it's interesting how they go through several different laser barriers to get into this room. But the plan to get out of this room is to just go through some random vents, hidden vents and things that are apparently so easily accessible, as we see a little later. So the Bad Batch are going to get on to the Imperial station, and they go through this process of erasing all their paint off of their helmets and stuff. That's going to mask them being not Imperial, but they're the Bad Batch. They don't look like normal clones in any way whatsoever, and I don't understand how that's going to help them go on to the base and not be question whatsoever. And immediately they even do that, where there's this officer guy who walks up to Rampart. He's like, what are these clones? What division are they from? They look weird. I don't know how that got them onto the base. I think that's really weird. because they don't. The Empire should know of the Bad Batch out there. I would assume. I don't know. Maybe just there's so many Imperial areas that not every Imperial is gonna know, I suppose. But I don't know. You just would immediately think it would bring an alarm to the Imperials there, and they wouldn't be able to get anywhere. They don't look like Imperial clones. Either way, they get onto the base, and Rampart does his thing. They walk around the facility. He takes charge as long as he can, and they get into this facility room, and they go to try and find coordinates to Tantiss, but they realize that they can't get coordinates. They can't actually download and intercept coordinates from the room they're in, but they can actually board a ship that will make its way to Tantiss. So they know of a ship that is going to make its way to Tantiss, but they've realized that they need to actually latch onto this ship or get onto this ship to go to Tantiss. They don't have a way to actually get the coordinates. So the new plan is to get onto this ship. So as they're doing that, Wrecker is left behind watching the ship. An Imperial confronts him for a moment. He knocks him out. So Wrecker, he contacts the Bad Batch and says, we need to hurry, we need to move on. We cut back to Omega, and she's ready to go into her plan. So she waits for the droid to leave. She goes back into her room. Immediately, some of the Imperial doctors and stuff are noticing that she's walking off from the other children. So there's like this weird little tense scene for a moment that one of the doctors is walking down as she's in her room, poking and prodding at this wall. And this wall comes off like these panels were glued on like 2 minutes ago by like school glue, and they just fall off. And she's able to get into the panel area that the droids were accessing with almost no effort, and they literally start to just fall. So this heavily guarded area that is guarded by several like layers of lasers to get into. This super secret crazy project in this place that they don't want people to get in or out of and whatnot. They have this like very, very strange, just exposed area that Omega can very easily get into with this tiny little tool. It's weird, but we got a scene with her basically just wrecking the thing. She looks up. There's like an entire open area there that the kids could possibly climb out. It's like a bunch of vents and whatnot. But before the doctor can get in there, she gets it all put back together, and she sits down on her bed, and they don't find out that Omega found the exit for them. So that'll be something that we see next week, probably. They'll try to escape. And, yeah. So Echo does manage to get aboard the ship that's going to go to Tantiss. So he is going to be the one that goes onto the ship so he can turn off the barrier thing where the ship will detect another ship getting close, the proximity thing. So he wants to get on the ship, turn that off so the Bad Batch can latch onto this ship from underneath. So he gets onto the ship. They're waiting for Echo, and just as it's about to go into hyperspace towards Tantiss, Echo does manage to get in there. Almost doesn't do it, but he manages to get in there and turn off the proximity warning. So the Bad Batch are able to get close to the ship and latch on right before it goes into hyperspace. So episode ends. Bad Batch are now on their way to Tantiss, and Omega is trying to escape again with a few kids with the very weak walls of the little facility that she's in. So not a bad episode, really. I don't know what to call these episodes. I don't know if it's filler. I kind of called last week filler. They're kind of filler, but they're just like chunks, tiny little chunks. And week to week, it's very hard to watch. I'm sure if you binged it, maybe it'd be a little more exciting if you just watched it all at once. I would recommend that if you're going to watch this show. Watch it all at once. Probably be a better viewing. But week to week, these tiny little chunks of the story like this, it just isn't working for me. It wasn't too exciting, pretty basic stuff, and they're probably going to cram a lot of stuff into those last few episodes now. And we got 2 episodes left. 2 episodes left of this whole show. It's not even like a double episode finale at the last week. It's just 2 last episodes. 1 next week and 1 the last week. That's it. So I don't know if they're going to be extended or if they're just going to be basic length and it's just going to end. I have no idea. It just seems like we're really getting to this point where we have to explain some stuff, and there's not much time left. We'll see what they do, though. I mean, they'll give us some sort of ending, that is for sure. Who knows, maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be pretty poor. With Disney Star Wars, it can be either or, really. Disney Star Wars has had a lot of poor endings, a lot of poor series, a lot of poor shows, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty lackluster. The Bad Batch hasn't been as bad as a lot of their other shows, for sure. It's just kind of been there, and it's had some very awesome moments, I will say, but it's had a very lot of dull, bland moments, and right now, these last few episodes, especially last week, this week, is just kind of an example of that. It's another Bad Batch mission, and we'll see how it ends next week. I'm going to assume next week it's going to be like part 1 finale, and then part 2 of the finale is the week after. It's going to be like part 1, part 2, split up into 2 weeks. I'm imagining, but I could be wrong. But yeah, Bad Batch is nearing its ending. We'll see what happens with Omega and the Palpatine clone stuff. And we'll see where that leads, really, because I don't really know exactly where they're trying to lead with that story. I don't know if it's just supposed to link with the sequel trilogy and try to explain them a little more with this cloning stuff. I don't know, man, but we'll find out.